welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I hope you're all having a wonderful Friday, and if you're in the UK, I hope you're looking forward to a lovely bank holiday weekend. Love a bank holiday weekend. We only had one a few weekends ago, and we got one in a couple more weekends, so there's just bank holiday weekend central. And that's how I love it. Today I'm going to be talking about the Women's Prize for Fiction shortlist. This was announced on Monday. I went to the Women's Prize for Fiction shortlist party on Monday, which was lovely. Simon took me, he took me as his +1, and it was lovely. There was lots of booktubers there, so we had a chat with those guys. Lots of vol au vents, ate those guys. Lots of nice drinks, drunk those guys. And there was also big versions of the books that have been shortlisted, the 6 books that have been shortlisted. Had my photos taken with those, that was nice. And yeah, in general, a bloody good party. And I thought I would do a chat about the shortlist. Now, I found myself in the position which I've never found myself in before, where I've read all of the books on the shortlist. The only one I hadn't finished, and I was reading it by the time it was announced, was An American Marriage, but I've actually finished that now. So never has this happened before, but I'm very excited to chat about what I thought about the 6 books that are on the Women's Prize shortlist and what I want to win. So I have gone through the 6 books that have been shortlisted are The Silence of the Girls, Cersei, Milkman, My Sister the Serial Killer, Ordinary People, and American Marriage. And if I'm good in the future, I'll have little pictures flashing up of there and it will be wonderful. So hopefully that's what's happened. And yeah, I've read all 6 of them. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the ones I didn't enjoy as much and work my way up. Now, there's going to be some upset here because I know the 2 that I didn't enjoy are very well beloved by some people. So if you're a person who loves these books and you're seeing that I'm not enjoying them, let it be known that this is my views and I'm aware that other people have very different opinions to me, and I'm quite happy for people to love things that I don't love. And yeah, so I just know I've made videos about books that I haven't liked before, and I've received a bit of backlash about it, but I don't want any backlash because there's probably books that I love that you hate. So, and if we were all the same, wouldn't it be boring? So yeah, so let's start with the books that I didn't enjoy so much. The one that I enjoyed the least was Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker, sorry. Now, I think for me, and you'll find out by the second book I didn't enjoy as much, being Cersei, I just don't think that like classics and myth retellings and things like that are my bag, which is fine, and I won't put myself through reading any more of them. But yeah, for me, Silence of the Girls, I just found non-stop misery, like complete non-stop misery. It didn't stop at all. I also felt like when I was reading it, I felt a bit left out because I don't know much about what happened back then, and I feel like reading this book, you needed to know a little bit. Like it was almost like referencing stuff that I was supposed to know about and I didn't know about it. My only references I've got, I studied, which is quite a bloody big reference, I studied the Iliad. I did classical civilization in year 13. I only did it as an AS level because I dropped out of geography, so I did it as an AS level, but like some of that's about Achilles. I should be able to do that. And also I used to really love Jason and the Argonauts when I was younger and watch that all the time, so I've been using some of those references as well. But yeah, for me it just felt like I was a bit left out of the party because I didn't really know everything that had happened. So that was something for me. And also for a book that was supposed to be giving the women of that time a voice, which for me sounds really exciting and like something I would want to read, the whole fucking thing's about Achilles. Like, so that also didn't ring true for me. I listened to the audiobook of this, I didn't read it. And what I will say is that, and I've said this to a few people who've read it, like when I was listening to the audiobook, so the whole story is, it's the story of Achilles basically, retold from Bryce's, and I might even be saying her name wrong, so apologies if I am, Bryce's perspective. But towards the end, you start hearing from Achilles' perspective. So not only is the whole thing that you're hearing from Bryce's perspective about Achilles, you also then hear about Achilles. Now, I was listening to the audiobook and the narrator swapped for those bits. So it was like a woman who had a really like monotonous voice, but I understand why, because no one's having fun during that time. And then it switches to Achilles at the end. Now, if that hadn't switched to a male voice, I'm not sure I would have been able to notice, or if I was that invested in the book that I would have noticed if I was reading the book, if that was Achilles. That's how I felt. Yeah, so for me, it just wasn't for me, and I'm sad about it. because I know it's really beloved for other people, but then I'm also happy for them. So pleased for them that they enjoy it. But yeah, it wasn't for me. I gave it 2 stars, but to be fair, I probably would knock that down to a 1 star now. The next book, actually, I will say about these 2 books. When I found out that Cersei and Silence of the Girls were both on the long list, I was surprised because I thought it would be Cersei or Silence of the Girls. At that point, I hadn't read either of them, so I just knew that they were both Greek like myth retellings, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be, like, I thought one of them was going to be on there. So for both of them to be on the long list, I was surprised, and for both of them to be on the short list, I was super surprised. So Cersei is the next one I'm going to talk about, and I didn't also very much enjoy Cersei, sadly. Again, it's not my bag. This, for me, it was super plot heavy, like really fast, constantly moving, and there were so many different characters. I also had to hark upon my knowledge of the Disney film Hercules doing this. Hercules, by the way, is my favourite. Is it my favourite Disney film? Yeah, it definitely is. It's my favourite Disney film. So I had to hark upon that as well. But yeah, I haven't really, for this, so this was a myth retelling of Cersei's life, I haven't really got anything that I big time hated about it, but I just didn't get any joy from reading it. And again, it was another one I was saddened by, because I thought maybe this might be a new genre for me, or something I might be more interested in. So yeah, I gave this 2 stars. I'm happy to keep it at a 2 stars because I did enjoy it more than I did Silence of the Girls. But for me, both of those books just aren't for me. So soz if you love them, and I understand a lot of people love them. I keep doing that, don't I? But yeah, they just weren't for me. So those were the first 2. So also, I'll put here, I think Cersei's going to win. I think Cersei will win the Women's Prize for Fiction. But it's not the one I want to win. But that's what I think is going to win. The third one is Milkman. I listened to this on audiobook. Now, this was an experience. It is a thread of consciousness novel written in a way that is not a writing style that I have read many books in. I've read another book by Emma McBride called The Lesser Bohemians, which is written in this sort of thread of consciousness. But it is not my favourite way to read, and it's actually quite a jarring way for me to read. So I thought, after reading The Lesser Bohemians, which I did manage to get through, I thought I would listen to the audiobook of this. And I think that helped, because as not only is it big, so I should say it's a novel told from the point of view of a woman living during the Troubles, which is some political I was going to say bother, but that bloody undermines it. Some political situation that happened between Northern Ireland and mainland Ireland for a long period of time, spanning like the 80s and the 90s, and even fucking now things are happening, which is just madness. So yeah, so I know little to nothing about that, and also that combined with a writing style that isn't particularly my I would say my favourite. I've only ever read it once before. It was all very new to me, and I think maybe if it hadn't been written in the thread of consciousness, would I have got on with the novel better? Maybe, because I feel like the plot was interesting. But yeah, you really have to pay attention the whole time. So when I was listening to the audiobook, you'll follow it, and also nobody's got any names, so there's quite difficult to like refer back to people. It's like maybe, but well, they have got names, but they're not like their actual names. They're called like maybe boyfriend and mother-in-law and brother-in-law, and yeah, just like everyone, no one's got any names that you can ascribe to them. So you're following the perspective of our main character as she's sort of just negotiating life, but she'll be talking about like she'll be talking about the fact that she's going to visit a boy, or she's going out for a run with her brother-in-law, but then she'll talk about, oh, but then when I reached that gate, I remembered the time that my mother said this about me, and when my father died, this happened, and then you'll go on a massive big tangent about her father dying, and then bring it back here to this gate that she's on her way to meet her brother-in-law. And yeah, it's just super duper, like you really have to concentrate. So it was fine, and I can see like it's a really interesting piece of writing written about a really important topic, but was it for me? No. But you'll be pleased to hear that the next 3 books I enjoyed a bit more. However, I'll say I enjoyed them a bit more. So the next one is the next one I enjoyed was My Sister the Serial Killer, and this for me was fine. So at the time I was enjoying it, and I was thinking like the storyline was quite pacey, and I thought it was quite maybe not original, but like something that I don't often read about in books, where you're following somebody and her sister is this beautiful woman who is finding herself, so she's calling her sister and saying, oh, so my boyfriend attacked me, so I had to kill him, so would you come and help me? And this has happened on a number of occasions, and she's thinking, like towards the end, she's thinking, well, that guy had like stab marks in his back. Does that mean like, that's not that doesn't like match up with her sister saying that he was attacking her and stuff like that. And she's sort of like, blood is thicker than water, and she sticks with her family and stuff. And then her sister starts dating somebody that she fancies, who works at the GP, like the hospital, the GP surgery she works at, and she begins getting a bit concerned about that. So yeah, the family dynamics of everything, I was like quite interested. But I found both the sister and the narrator, the character we're following, I found them both quite unbearable actually. Like yeah, I didn't particularly like either of them. So maybe, but that's not to say that that's what I need in a book. I need to like the main character to enjoy it. But yeah, for me it was just fine, and at the time like I was enjoying it, and I feel like it's the book that will appeal to the most people, I think, in this list. Did I think it should have been on the shortlist? Probably not. But I can sort of see the appeal, and I feel like it will be the one that of the 6 that people would more likely gravitate to, maybe because of the title. But yeah, I feel like that's how I feel. That's how I feel. So yeah, I gave that 3 stars. I'd probably keep that. Would I? Or would I to put it down to a 2? I might have put it down to a 2 actually. But don't worry, because the misery's over, because the next 2 books I really enjoyed. I gave them both 4 stars, and I'm considering moving one of them up to a 5 stars because I only finished reading it yesterday, but I really keep thinking about it. So yeah, so the first one I gave 4 stars, and it was Ordinary People. So when I say I really enjoyed this, it's tough because it's a book about 2 failing relationships, and it really does make you question everything about any relationship you've ever had. Like, it really is like miserable. It's really miserable and it's really sad, but I did enjoy it. So something else I enjoyed about it is that it's sort of like multimedia layered, in that the title Ordinary People refers to a John Legend song, and one of the characters talks about the album that this song is from, talking about the album in a way that he remembers sort of he's a coming of age really when he was listening to this. So it's got the way the songs are put in order are like John Legend's trying to find a girlfriend. He finds someone but he cheats on her, and then he finds someone and then he doesn't really like her that much, and then he's out on a club and things like that. And I was listening to the album as in between reading this, so I remember reading it and then getting in the bath and listening to the album and like being able to attribute it to bits in the book and things, and I really like that. So I really like that. But then also there's something that happens later on in the book. So it takes place mainly in the Crystal Palace area of London, and there's a lot of sort of like history about the Crystal Palace, which no longer exists. But there's also a very spooky thread that sort of picks up halfway through, where one of the characters believes that her daughter is possessed, and it's not as spooky as it sounds, but it did creep me out, and I was unable to read it when David wasn't here. So yeah, so I mean I've had a few chats about this book because I think it's quite a divider, because it is miserable. So I think you have to be invested in the storyline and the characters to get some sort of level of enjoyment out of it, because potentially in the way that Silence of the Girls, I found that miserable, other people I can imagine would find Ordinary People very miserable. So that just goes to show not all the books are for all the people. But yeah, so yeah, but there is, and I've heard someone sort of say that a lot of stuff was thrown at it, so it's sort of stylistically got a lot going on, and then there's a plot with like quite a normal, well not normal, but like these failing relationships, and then throw in a possessed child and things like that. But yeah, I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars, and up until yesterday I wanted it to win. When I was reading it I was thinking there's no way this will be on the shortlist, but it would be really good if it would, because I'd love for it to win. So yeah, so it didn't. It did get on the shortlist, which is amazing, but now there's one that's just sort of edged it for me, because I really did enjoy Ordinary People, and yeah, there we go. So the last one, and this is the one that I finished yesterday, is An American Marriage. Now I gave it 4 stars, but I am actually thinking like if there was a 0.5 star, I would stick that 0.5 star on there, because I do really enjoy it. So this is this is, in terms of like, it sort of ticked a lot of boxes for me in terms of like characters I could grow to love, or and a plot line that I could easily follow, but with also complications in it and things that have happened in the past that are coming up now. And yeah, I just really liked it. I really like the writing style of it. So I'll tell you the story. So you follow a new marriage between a pair, Celestial and Roy. They've been married 18 months, and they go up to visit Roy's family, and they decide they're going to stay in a hotel, a local hotel, when they're there, because I can't really remember why, but last time I think Celestial felt a bit uncomfortable sleeping under the same roof as his parents and things like that, so they decide to stay at this hotel. So they're having an argument while they're in this hotel, and they sort of call a timeout, and Roy goes to fill up the ice bucket, and while he's there he meets a woman, an older woman there, who is also filling up her ice bucket, and she's I think she's on like a walking stick or something, and he says, let me help you carry this upstairs. Me and my wife have had an argument anyway, so like I've said I'll give her a bit of time out. So he takes it up to her room, and while he's there, as he's leaving the room, he says, oh, be careful, your lock doesn't seem to be locking properly on your door, I'd get that looked at. Well, anyway, later on that night, the woman is raped. Now, Roy didn't do it, and that never comes into question really. It's you are hearing about it from his family's point of view, so it's never come into to question that Roy was the person that raped it. But sadly, he goes to jail for it. So he goes to prison for it, and to begin with, Roy and Celestial really try to keep up their relationship. He's due to serve 12 years, and from the moment he goes to prison, you get a sort of big chunk of the book, which is letters in between Roy and Celestial, which start off very loving and almost optimistic, talking about things that have been up to and stuff like that, and then quite quickly you see the sort of breakup of their marriage over these letters. And yeah, it really saddened me, those parts. And then not to give a big spoiler, but he actually gets out much earlier than he thought he would, and he wishes to return to his life as it was, and Celestial isn't ready for him to be out and has taken up with somebody else. So it's a story about friendship, it's a story about relationships, it's a story about like touching on the bloody justice system in the US, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really loved it, and I just feel like there was so much feeling in it, and I was really like moved by it, and I guess it was just my favourite. So my thoughts are is that it was my favourite. It just moved along really well for me without it feeling rushed, and yeah, I just love it, which is probably what I spent the most time talking about it. So that is the one that I would like to win, or Ordinary People, but I think Cersei's going to win. So would love to hear your thoughts, hear what you enjoyed in the shortlist, whether you've read the shortlist, whether you're planning on reading any of these books, what you'd like to see win. Were you surprised? The one thing I haven't touched about in this video are the books that made the long list but didn't make the shortlist. I mean, Normal People, I was really surprised that it didn't make the shortlist, but at the same time I'm also pleased, because is it somebody else's turn? And that sort of reflects in the way I feel about Milkman. Like Milkman won the Man Booker. Like, is it somebody else's turn to give somebody else a prize? So yeah, so let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all again soon for another BookTube video. Goodbye.